Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for your association. Just a confirmation, you can see my screen and audio is clear, audible. Today we're going to be covering Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, verses 44 to 52. We're completing this chapter, the prayers of Queen Kunti and Parikshit saved. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapara Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Astute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarvasastra Piyusha Sarva Vedeka Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokai Triprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kali Bando Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grants spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O light breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Premavashasharayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastate. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. For your soul was the pure love of God upon the reader. You always to be served by everyone for your incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madaka Bando Mat Sange Man Guru Man Mahadana Man Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Madananda Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. Sadhu sadhu tadai nattini chochataraka anamunchakata chinmam premna ritkatayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O give us saintliness and unsaintly, I have lived for the very fallen. Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest. Mahatma told the company will live pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yatonvaya Ritaratas Charte Svabhigna Swara Tene Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yata Vinimayo Yatrakti Sargom Risha Damna Svena Sada Nirastakuakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord, Shri Krishna, Son of us, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations and is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being, and by him, even the great sages and demigods are placed in illusion as one is bewildered by illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen in water. Only because of him did the material universe temporarily manifest by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent, transcendental abode, which is forever free from illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayana upasha sabhya kalabasmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagyupa adrita. O learned one, it is iron age of Kali, many but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Narayana namaskritya narachevam narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance to the personality of Godhead Narayan, Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and the Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savaipum saparo dharmo yato bhaktira dokshaja hetuke pratiyata yatma suprasiddhati. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy itself. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jayanya Vairagyam Jnanam cha Yadahutakam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God, Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Vedanti tattvavidas tattvam jajgnadam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Then the transcendentals who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. Shushrushoshadanasya vasudeva kata ruchi syan mahatsavaya vipra punyatirtha nishevanat. Twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely free from all vice. Great service is done. By such service one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. Shranvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana ridyantastovya bhadrani vadunati suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the true devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotees who have developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nastrapasha Badreshu Nitam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. By regular attendance in the classroom of the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of God, who is praise or transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder chair of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna and welcome again. So let us get any feedback from last week's verses, 37-43, chapter 8, Canto 1. Please share anything that you remembered, that you found interesting, that you thought of memorizing. Any feedback? Thank you. Madhachana Siddhi says, when we cultivate the highest level of dependence on Krishna, we can engage all other secondary forms of dependable objects in the service of Krishna. Wonderful. And if we do not cultivate dependence of Krishna, and we dependence on Krishna, and we cultivate dependence on other areas, other facets of our lives, then the consequence is that your life is going to topple. Just like if you build anything without a proper foundation, then it's going to crumble sooner or later. We don't want our life to crumble. Unfortunately, our lives have been crumbling again and again and again. Srimad Bhagavatam is revealing why are we building our house and it's crumbling again and again. Why is our life built and crumbling? It's because our foundation is not solid. And our foundation becomes solid when our life is totally dependent on Krishna. It's a very, very important principle and philosophical truth to imbibe. Hemavati Radhika says, Pandavas were perfect example. Although they were expert, they always depended on Krishna. Yes. It doesn't mean I have great abilities, therefore I don't need Krishna. Oh, I can make lots of money, I don't need Krishna. Oh, I'm very strong, I don't need Krishna. I'm very intelligent, I don't need Krishna. If you have that mentality, Krishna will teach you very quickly how wonderful your opulences are. You will learn a very, very quick lesson. Oh, I'm so beautiful, I don't need Krishna. Krishna will take that beauty and transform it into the most beautiful ugliness to teach you a lesson. Oops. So in this way, a very, very important point, we have to understand that our abilities are simply loan are simply opulences loaned by Krishna for his service, for his glorification, not for our glorification. Vasarajpur says, complete surrender is a sign of a Mahatma. And this is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means I recognize, I realize I need to surrender. And now I accept the path of surrender. That is initiation. I'm initiating the path of surrender. Initiation doesn't mean I'm surrendered. No, initiation means I'm beginning to surrender. And now I need to understand, I need to build again and again and complete that surrender to 100%. And then maintain that surrender through love. Nalinikanda says, separation from Krishna is like fish out of water, and you will always suffer. Shamananda says, Hare Krishna, thanks for weekly nectar. How to properly understand, realize the Lord is the doer and not us. Easily to think differently. We have to act in doing service, but how exactly and with what mood and understanding? So the more we hear Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports, the more we will realize this. And it will dawn upon us more and more and more. So for example, the point of dependence, that is the mood by which we have to serve. In today's lessons, we're also going to be covering further aspects of the mood and attitude. See, the quality or the activity that we have to do is everybody knows. I need to serve Krishna. But with what quality, with what mood, with what attitude? That Srila Prabhupada reveals in his Bhaktivedanta purports in practically every single purport. So just consider, in every single purport of Srila Prabhupada is revealing the attitude, the consciousness, what's wrong, what's right in our service. Which means if we have to just take the Srimad Bhagavatam alone, there's 18,000 minimum. There's 18,000 instructions that's repeated again, maybe again, multiple times, revealing the attitude and consciousness of service. And we'll see as we go through day, we will shed some light on some of those. What is the proper consciousness, the proper attitude to please Krishna? So this will come up again and again. So the question is practically Srila Prabhupada's purports. And we cannot learn this overnight. It takes time. But at least we've started a journey. Most people don't even know that there's a journey. Most people have no clue. They're in this maze. They're caught up. And they're influenced by the mode of ignorance. And they're in the cycle that they have no idea that there's a path out. They don't even know that there's something out there. They don't even know that this is not our real home. They don't even know that I'm not this body. They're completely immersed in this ignorance, thinking that this is truth. So at least those that have come in contact with Srila Prabhupada's books, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we know that this is not the reality. Reality is beyond what we see. And Prabhupada is guiding us out of this reality. Amavati Radhika says, ultimate dependable object is Krishna. It's always Krishna. Hare Krishna mantra, yes. Rasaraj, attachment to Shri Krishna. Do not wait to stop. Attachment to Shri Krishna. Do not wait to stop chanting Hare Krishna. This is attachment that I do not want to stop. I want Krishna again and again and again. When you get that deep attachment in our heart, that means true attachment. Mother Les says, pure devotees never ask the Lord for anything unless it is more loving devotional service. Prema Bhakti, or to never be forgetful of Shri Krishna, but constantly be in his thought of him and everything that is his. And Queen Kunti is revealing this very beautifully. She wants attachment to Krishna. Chaitanya Prabhu says, the best way of leading one's life is surrender to Krishna completely with capital letters. Yes, this is the perfection of Krishna consciousness. This is the journey. And we want to associate with those that can inspire us, even 1% to achieve that result. And we want to try to be very conscientious of avoiding anything that dampens that spirit. Anything that's encouraging us away, we want to avoid. Anything that's encouraging us for, we want to embrace. Yamavati Radhika says, humility means thinking of Krishna as the highest, not myself as low. Never take credit. It's Guru, Srila Prabhupada, and Radha Krishna's mercy. Yes. Thank you very much for your feedback. Let us proceed. So today's verses, we are covering the Lord's interaction with Agri Yudhishthira. We're going to hear how Krishna responded to Queen Kunti's prayers, and now we're going to hear about Yudhishthira Maharaj's despondency. The theme throughout these sets of verses is the will of the Lord. Prabhupada, there's over 285 references in his Bhaktivedanta purports in relation to the will of Krishna, the will of the Lord. More than 285. Here's few of them. Those in which we also covered. Those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called Sanata. They have a master. Total depends on Krishna is real freedom. And those who are bound by this complete dependence, they are really free. There is enough of everything by the will of the Lord, and we can make proper use of things to live comfortably without enmity between man or animal or man or nature. Such a powerful statement. Krishna's given us everything in this world. There is sufficient for everyone for us to live comfortably. But because of greed, we exploit, we cheat others of the resources. And therefore there's enmity. Therefore there's suffering. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. And when we understand this, we accept. Most people are fighting a battle. I don't want this. Why is this? I don't like this. When you understand that not a blade of grass moves without the will of Krishna, you begin to accept things. At the same time, you also understand that Krishna is sanctioning that grass to move. Krishna is sanctioning the evil activities of those who want to exploit. Krishna is sanctioning the good activities of those who want to be beneficial to humanity. It is not Krishna's intention, but it is Krishna's sanction. Therefore, as devotees, we accept both the good and the bad that comes to us by others and by our karma, understanding that it is the will of Krishna. And then as we progress further, we want to go deeper and deeper and understand what is Krishna's intention for me. He sanctioned it, but what is his intention? Because his intention is deeper. It means more intimacy. It means I will need to understand what Krishna really loves, desires, so that I can make my mind, body, words align to Krishna's desires. Right now, I am enjoying or suffering the desires and the intention of other people and my own desires, intentions. But when I understand that there is a supreme personality behind all these activities, and what does he desire, then life becomes a spiritual adventure. Then life becomes a spiritual journey. Just like here we see in this picture, even though the Pandavas were powerful, and they were powerful at the same time, there were so many obstacles. But behind them was Krishna. And when they fell short of abilities, of talents, of power, of vigor, of vitality. It was Krishna that gave them that. And right from the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, we knew that is going to be victory. Why? Because transcendental conch shells were blown. It was the will of Krishna that the Pandavas were victorious. And therefore, we have to understand and contemplate on this will of the Lord. No one should do anything, eat anything, sacrifice anything, or give anything in charity against the will of the Lord. Such a beautiful statement. No one should do anything against the will of the Lord. No one should eat anything against the will of the Lord. No one should sacrifice anything against the will of the Lord. And no one should give anything in charity against the will of the Lord. That shows how important Krishna should be in the lives of every individual, every devotee, because we are meant for the will of Krishna. We are meant for fulfilling the will of Krishna. We are meant for pleasing the will of Krishna. Text 44. So now we're going to hear how Krishna responded to the beautiful prayers that Queen Kunti offered. Krishna is not stone. Krishna reciprocates. At the same time, you cannot dictate how Krishna should reciprocate. Krishna is Swaraj, Krishna is independent. And however Krishna reciprocates, we should accept that wholeheartedly in our lives. Suto vacham prateyatam kala padai parinuta kililodaya mandam jahasa vaikunto mohayan ivamaya. Sutta Goswami said, the Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was as enchanting as his mystic power. So Krishna responded by giving a beautiful smile. That smile, externally to a materialist, oh, Krishna just smiled. He didn't even say anything. He just smiled. I mean, he at least could have said something. But for the pure devotee, that smile is as enchanting and as powerful as Krishna's mystic powers. It's profound. Krishna can do a little, or Krishna can respond a little and achieve unlimited. Krishna can bestow a fraction of his opulence and powers for you to achieve unlimited in this material world. This is Krishna's potency. Prabhupada in the purport says, anything that is enchanting in the world is said to be a representation of the Lord. The conditioned souls who are engaged in trying to lord it over the material world are also enchanted by his mystic powers. But his devotees are enchanted in a different way by the glories of the Lord, and his merciful blessings are upon them. His energy is displayed in different ways as electrical energy works in manifold capacities. Srimati Kunti Devi has prayed to the Lord just to enunciate a fragment of his glories. All his devotees worship him in that way by chosen words, and therefore the Lord is known as Uttama Sloka. No amount of chosen words is sufficient to enumerate the Lord's glory, and yet he is satisfied by such prayers as the Father is satisfied even by broken linguistic attempts of the growing child. The word Maya is used both in the sense of delusion and mercy. Herein, the word Maya is used in the sense of the Lord's mercy upon Kunti Devi. So the word Maya means mercy, And Maya also means illusion. Krishna smiled. He was happy. He was pleased. And if one can please Krishna, it's described one can please, by Krishna be pleased, one pleases the whole universe. If Krishna is satisfied, the whole universe is satisfied. If Krishna's representative is pleased, then Krishna is pleased. So our goal, our life's goal should be simply to get the smile from Krishna. By whatever service we can render, if Krishna is pleased, that is perfection. We find Srila Prabhupada's servants, devotees, followers, when they were serving Srila Prabhupada, they were waiting through their service, that opportune moment for Srila Prabhupada to be satisfied, for Srila Prabhupada to smile, for Srila Prabhupada to be thankful. And when Srila Prabhupada responded, thank you very much, they would be so happy, it would give them unlimited bliss. This was the beauty, this was the glory of pleasing Srila Prabhupada. So we have to desire this. One time, one devotee was chanting Hare Krishna outside Srila Prabhupada's room. Srila Prabhupada, in fact, she was chanting near stairway, and Prabhupada was coming past, and Prabhupada saw that she was chanting, and Prabhupada said, thank you very much. Prabhupada appreciated even those who endeavored to try to practice spiritual life. So we should not underestimate a simple smile of Krishna, because it is enchanting. It is not simple. It is powerful. And Queen Kunti received that reciprocation, and she was very, very satisfied. Prabhupada in his lecture says, the language should not be cheap. Kunti offered prayers to Krishna in very chosen, nice words, all the words. Therefore, Krishna is known. His another name is Uttama Sloka, because Krishna is supreme. He should be offered prayers with supreme words and feelings. Supreme words and feelings. When you offer Krishna words of supreme, or offer supreme words and supreme feelings, not just supreme words, but also the feelings need to be exalted, need to be of a high quality, not tinged with lust and commotion, but tinged with love and devotion. Supreme words and feelings. The language should not be cheap, or the ideas should not be cheap. And if you're not expert at that, like Prabhupada is giving an example, as a child, the child may not be expert in the beginning. Prabhupada said we should learn. So how can we learn? By the choices, prayers of exalted devotees. And that is why Prabhupada encouraged us to sing the songs and prayers of the Vaishnavacharyas. Because in our conditioned stage, we don't know how to offer with choices feelings. Choices words. What to do about feelings? And therefore, Prabhupada says we have to be trained. Training is required in every aspect of our service. And we should be open to training. We should be open to advice. How can I improve more and more and more so that my service is glorifying Krishna and befitting his personality? And Prabhupada says, instead of writing ourselves, if we follow footprints of great devotees, we can practice how to offer prayers to Krishna. Instead of writing ourselves, if we in the beginning follow the footprints of great devotees of Krishna and follow their principles, taken to heart how they have spoken, that will be advantageous because Krishna will be pleased. So if we offer the same prayers that Queen Kunti offered to Krishna, Krishna smiles. So in this way, very beautifully, Krishna responded. Krishna responded, and then after responding with a smile, he gets off the chariot and he goes and greets the other ladies in Hastinapur. Text 45. Tam bandam ityupa mantriya pravishya gaja sahavayam striyas cha swapuram yasyam premna raja nivarita. Thus, accepting the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed the ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapur. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthira, who implored him lovingly. So Krishna, for a few minutes, stayed, because he was already in the chariot, so he could have left. But Krishna stayed for a few minutes and greeted everyone, Subhadra, etc. And then, as Krishna was now again ready to leave, he was implored again by King Yudhishthira lovingly. Prabhupada in the purport says, no one could make Lord Krishna stay at Hastinapur when he decided to start for Dwarka. But the simple request of King Yudhishthira that the Lord remain there for a few days more was immediately effective. This signifies that the power of King Yudhishthira was loving affection, which the Lord could not deny. The Almighty God is thus conquered only by loving service and nothing else. He is fully independent in all his dealings, but he voluntarily accepts obligations by loving affection for his pure devotees. Krishna is greedy for love, and Krishna becomes a doll in the hands of his loving devotees. It is not exploitation, but loving reciprocation. We find Shrijan Mahaprabhu, when the elderly ladies in Navadvip, they would ask Nimai, please dance. And they would chant, and Nimai would dance for their pleasure. Similarly, the gopis, baby Krishna would come and they would see baby Krishna, and then they would tell baby Krishna, we're going to give you some sweets if you dance for us. And then Krishna would dance for them. So in this way, Krishna would respond to the loving requests of the devotees. He is completely independent. He doesn't need to. But out of love, he responds. Similarly, in the material world, people, they order God. Give me this, do this, I want this, why is this? They don't understand Krishna is not an order supplier. Krishna doesn't need to respond to a single of your requests because he's totally independent. Yet, Krishna responds to every single desire of the conditioned soul. Prabhupada writes in Sri Shopanishad that when the living entity desires sense gratification, then the super soul is bound eternally to fulfill those desires. Krishna as a super soul will eternally continue to fulfill those desires. That is why it is said we are bound practically since time immemorial. As long as you have a desire in the material world, Krishna will fulfill that. The problem is we have unlimited desires, and therefore when we desire again, that desire goes in queue. First in, first out. That is the problem. And therefore it seems like I'm desiring something and Krishna is not fulfilling. Well, the reason is because you asked for 108, previous desires. So wait, put that desire in queue. It's coming. And in this way, we bind ourselves again and again and again. We need to understand that I need to stop desiring for my sense gratification and start desiring for Krishna. We find Yudhishthira Maharaj, out of his love, he offered his request to Krishna. And we're going to hear the will of Krishna coming through in a very astounding way through this episode that we're going to now cover. 46. Vyasa Dyar Ishvare Hajna Krishna Nad Bhuta Karmanam Prabodhito Piti Haser Nabudyata Sutarpita. King Yudhishthira, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced, despite instructions by great sages headed by Vyasa and Lord Krishna himself, the performer of human feats, and despite all historical evidence. Yudhishthira Maharaj could not be pacified from his aggrieved situation. Yudhishthira Maharaj was aggrieved because of killing so many family members and soldiers, human beings on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And even though it was Krishna's desire that the battlefield of Kurukshetra be there to destroy irreligion and enthrone religious ruling, it was Krishna's desire. So if it's Krishna's desire, then Yudhishthira Maharaj, as a great devotee, he was Dharmaraj. He understood all the principles of Dharma. He could easily have understood, okay, yes, it's Krishna's desire. But he could not be convinced. Even Krishna, so in words, could not convince him. Even Vyasadev's words could not convince Yudhishthira. How is that possible? Prabhupada writes, the pious king Yudhishthira was mortified because of the massacre of human beings in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, especially on his account. Duryodhana was there on the throne, and he was doing well in his administration. And in one sense, there was no need for fighting. But on the principle of justice, Yudhishthira was to replace him. The whole clique of politics centered around this point. And all the kings and resident of the whole world became involved in this fight between the rival brothers. Lord Krishna was also there on the side of King Yudhishthira. It is said in the Mahabharata, Adi Parva 20, that 640 million men were killed in 18 days on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and some hundreds and thousands were missing. Prabhupada was giving a report. You find in the in World War I, World War II, it was like 30 million, 40 million. Mahabharata was 640 million were killed in 18 days. And probably some others were even thousands missing. We don't know what happened to them. Prabhupada was giving a report on the Mahabharata war. So millions of people. And Yudhishthira felt it was all because of him. Practically, this was the greatest battle in the world within 5,000 years. This mass killing simply enthroned Maharaj Yudhishthira was too mortifying. So he tried to be convinced with evidence from histories by great sages like Vyasa, and the Lord himself, that the fight was just because the cause was just. But Maharaj Yudhishthira would not be satisfied, even though he was instructed by the greatest personalities of time. Krishna is designated herein as performer of superhuman actions. But in this particular instance, neither he nor Vyas could convince King Yudhishthira. And here is the punchline. Does it mean that he, Krishna, failed to be a superhuman actor? Oh, just see, even Krishna couldn't convince Yudhishthira Maharaj. And we say Krishna is the supreme personality of God and he can do anything? Krishna did not fail. In fact, Krishna was perfectly successful. The problem is you don't know Krishna's intention. And therefore, you're saying, oh, just see, he couldn't convince Yudhishthira Maharaj. So Prabhupada is going to reveal further. Does it mean Did he fail to be a superhuman actor? No, certainly not. Krishna never fails. Krishna is always successful in every single activity he performs. He's infallible, he's a tutor. That is Krishna, that is the definition of God. The definition of a conditioned soul, you will always fail. The definition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will always be successful. Choose your side. Prabhupada continues. The interpretation is that the Lord as Ishwar, or the supersoul in the heart of both King Yudhishthir and Vyasa, performed still more superhuman action because the Lord desired it. As supersoul of King Yudhishthir, he did not allow the king to be convinced by the words of Vyasa and others, including himself, because he desired that the king hear instructions from the dying Bhishma Dev, who was another great devotee of the Lord. The Lord wanted that at the last stage of his material existence, the great warrior Bhishma Dev see him personally and see his beloved grandchildren, King Yudhishthira, etc., now situated on the throne, and thus pass away very peacefully. Bhishma Dev was not at all satisfied to fight against the Pandavas, who were his beloved fatherless grandchildren, but the Kshatriya are also very stern people, and therefore he was obliged to take side of Duryodhana because he was maintained at the expense of Duryodhana. Besides this, the Lord also desired that King Yudhishthira be pacified by the words of Bhishma Dev, so that the world could see that Bhishma Dev excelled all in knowledge, including the Lord himself. Krishna wants to glorify and give credit to his devotees. Bhishma Dev is now lying on the battlefield with hundreds and thousands of arrows piercing his body and acting like a bed of arrows. He's still alive. And his desire, Bhishma Dev's desire is, I want to leave this world, because he had the benediction. He was given a benediction by his father that he could leave this world at his sweet will, whenever he desired. And he knew that the perfection of life is to leave this world thinking, seeing Krishna. And Krishna, knowing that desire, wanted to fulfill that desire of Bhishma Dev. At the same time, he wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev. So just see, Krishna could have easily convinced Yudhishthira much, but Krishna did not want to take the credit. Krishna wanted to give the credit to his devotees. So the lesson here is, give credit where due. Do not take credit where it's undue. And if the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants to glorify and give credits to his devotees, then we should be willing and ready to give credits to the devotees. Even if credits are taken where you supposed to be credited and somebody else get the credits, don't worry. At least the devotee got the credit. Because maybe that was what Krishna desired. For your own purification. So here we see Krishna is putting even his devotee in ignorance. Like he did on the Mahabharata, in the Mahabharata war, he put Krishna in ignorance to give us Bhagavad Gita. He put Arjuna in ignorance to give us Bhagavad Gita. So here, Krishna is putting, is bewildering Yudhishthira Maharaj that he cannot be He was not convinced with all the histories, with even Krishna's advice and instructions, even Vyasa's instructions and advice. He could not be convinced. It was Krishna's desire so that Bhishmadev could be glorified. And Yudhishthira could hear the words of Dharma from Bhishmadev, which we're going to hear. So in every situation, here we find Krishna is putting Yudhishthira in apparent ignorance. And that means that when devotees act in ways which are inconceivable, which are incongruent, which apparently seem out of ignorance, we should be very careful to judge. Because it may be very well Krishna's will and design. Therefore, don't be very quick to point fingers, to blame, to judge, to condemn, to mock, to criticize, to find fault. Be very careful. Rather, we should be strict with ourselves and lenient with others. Rather, we should look within ourselves than others. It is said, take the log out of your eyes before you take the splint out of others. So beautiful lesson the Lord is revealing here. We don't know how Krishna is responding and desiring with all his associates and devotees. In one letter, Srila Prabhupada writes so beautifully. He says, you have no reason to criticize. Prabhupada says that you can only criticize if you know that that devotee has not done his best. You can only find fault with that devotee if you know that that devotee has not done his best. Now, the question is, how do you know whether that devotee has done his best or not? You don't, because you're not Krishna, you're not the super soul. And because you don't know, therefore you have no reason to criticize. That doesn't mean we also just go and do things haphazardly and use that as leverage, that I can do anything. Oh, it's Krishna's desire. No, that is your nonsense. That is nonsensical. That is why Krishna also allows the spiritual master to see fault so that he can rectify. But he is qualified. He has the proper vision. Srila Prabhupada was able to rectify and correct out of love, not to crucify, but out of love to help and empower and encourage his disciples, to uplift his disciples. So this is expertise. Expertise. Text 47. Aharaja dharma suttas chintaya suridam vadam prakritenatmana vipra sneha moha vasamgata. King Yudhishthira, the son of Dharma, overwhelmed by death of his friends, was aggrieved, just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, began to speak. So Krishna desired that Yudhishthira lament like a materialistic man, like a common materialistic man. Just consider, Yudhishthira was Dharmaraj. He was the emblem of religious principles. He's a pure devotee of the Lord, and he is acting like a materialistic man right now and grieving. How is that possible? Somebody will say, well, what happened to Yudhishthira Maharaj? Gee, just see. He's acting like me when I was not a devotee. He blooped, he's fallen. It is Krishna's will. Purport. King Yudhishthira, though he was not expected to become aggrieved like a common man, became deluded by worldly affection by the will of the Lord, just as Arjuna was apparently deluded. A man who sees, knows well that the living entity is neither the body nor the mind, but is transcendental to materialist conception of life. The common man thinks of violence and non-violence in terms of the body, but that is a kind of delusion. Everyone is duty bound according to one's occupational duties. A Kshatriya is bound to fight for the right cause, regardless of the opposite party. I'll repeat that again. A Kshatriya is bound to fight for the right cause, regardless of the opposite party. This is Kshatriya. A Kshatriya is not meant to side for a party. A warrior is not meant to side for a party. A warrior is meant to fight for righteousness. And that is why you find that if there are two armies, like in this case, the Kauravas and Pandavas, when the Kauravas were defeated, then if there were any other warriors that were left, they would put down their arms and surrender fully to the Pandavas and follow the Pandavas. And they would be as enthusiastic, as loyal, as committed as they were to the enemies. This is warrior. This is Kshatriya. This is the spirit. Not like not like Abhimanyu. Not like Karna or those that were in the opposing army. Forgot his name. So not like those who, like Ashwatthama, they meant to surrender, but they do not uphold the Kshatriya code. Not like that. A true Kshatriya will only fight for Dharma. So therefore, they will only take side of Dharma, not take sides of party. And we find in this material world, it's party politics. It's party siding. My party against your party. They're fighting each other instead of fighting a Dharma. This is Kali Yuga. And that is why Prabhupada had such a large vision. He wanted the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to establish the Kshatriya lineage again. Prabhupada, in the limited time that he had, he established, at least gave some framework, foundation for the Brahmanical culture. That Brahmanical culture is meant to now establish the Kshatriyas, then the Vaishyas, so that humanity can be saved, humanity can be peaceful and happy. In such discharge of duty, one should not be disturbed by annihilation of the material body, which is only an external dress of the living soul. All this was perfectly known to Maharaj Yudhishthira, but by the will of the Lord, he became just like a common man because there was another great idea behind this delusion. The king would be instructed by Bhishma, as Arjuna was instructed by the Lord himself. So it was Krishna's desire to put Yudhishthira Maharaj in this grieved situation so that we could hear the beautiful episode of Bhishma Dev speaking about Dharma. 48. Aho me pashyata jnanam riddhi rudam duratmana parakshyas yasyaiva dehasya bhavyo me shoni nirhata. King Yudhishthira said, "Oh my Lord, I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. This body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many phalanxes of men. Prabhupada in the purport gives a number of the Akshohini. So a solid phalanx of 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 109,650 infantry, and 65,600 cavalry is called an Akshohini. And many Akshohinis were killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. It is said that the Pandavas had 7 Akshohinis and the Kauravas had 11. So even from a number perspective, they were defeated. Yudhishthira, as the most pious king of the world, takes for himself the responsibility of killing such a huge number of living beings because the battle was fought to reinstate him on the throne. This body is, after all, meant for others. While there is life in the body, it is meant for the service of others. And when it is dead, it is meant to be eaten by the dogs and jackals and maggots. He is sorry because for such a temporary body, such a huge massacre was committed. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is such a noble personality that he didn't think, oh, great, everyone's dead, thank God, they killed Nama, and I got my throne. No. He felt for those that sacrificed their life. This is a great soul. He feels for others. And here it is said that the body is meant for the service of others, not for your sense gratification. There's a beautiful, in scripture, they have beautiful wisdom statements. So here's one wisdom statement from scripture. Rivers do not drink their own waters, and also trees do not eat their own fruits. Likewise, rain-bearing clouds, which help growing various grains, do not eat the grains. Surely the aim of great, noble, and righteous persons in their lifetime is to do selfless service to humanity. This is the power of Krishna consciousness. Because Krishna consciousness is the Prabhupada says, para upakara, the greatest welfare work for humanity. And we should be sacrificing our life, our mind, body, and words, and all the resources we have for this purpose, to serve others. But this means that only those who are noble, only those who have a higher level of consciousness can understand this to be the goal and objective of human life. Otherwise, everybody else is interested in their own sense gratification. Yudhishthira Maharaj felt responsible for killing so many people. Another lesson we can learn is that we should be accountable and responsible. If we do something, we should know that I am responsible, and we should take responsibility. We should not blame or pass the buck. Yudhishthira Maharaj could have said, well, it's not my fault, it's their karma, their fault, they sided against Krishna. If they sided with Krishna, they would have saved. No. He took responsibility. They were killed because of me becoming the king. And therefore he took full accountability and responsibility for the actions. Prabhupada in his lectures says, the dog's body is meant for the service of that master. How can we claim this is my body? From the very beginning, then somebody maintains you. Suppose you are working in office, in factory, So actually the body belongs to him, the maintainer, just like a dog. The master is maintains it. And the dog's body is meant for the service of the master. As soon as the master indicates you do this, immediately he does it. A dog has no independence practically. So in this way, the body belongs to the master. In the beginning, the body belongs to the father and mother. And then if you grow up, then the body belongs to your country. In this way, you can go up to death point. And after death, also the body belongs to others. So this body is changing so many masters. And ultimately, it is given by Krishna. He is the supreme master. So one may think, okay, this body belongs to my parents. Let me serve my parents. Then that changes. Oh, my body belongs to the country. Let me serve my country. Then changes. Oh, the body belongs to my boss. Let me serve my boss. That changes. Ultimately, this body is taken by the true owner, death. And when one recognizes that Krishna is coming in the form of death, let me use this body to serve Krishna, then one transcends birth and death. So for one who recognizes that this body should be used for the service of Krishna, that is the most glorious realization. Sacrifice this body for others. Why not for Krishna? So our intelligence is, if we have to work for others and sacrifice this body for others, why not for Krishna? That is our philosophy. If I am whole duration of life, I'm working for others. Others means ultimately my senses, and senses others. Kamadina katina kadida palita durnidesha. My senses dictating. You stick to this woman and go to hell. Yes, I'm ready. Yes, come, lust. So I'm servant of lust. Neither I am servant of woman or servant of this man or that man. I'm servant of lust, of my lust. And the lust is dictating that you do this nonsense. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do. So in this way, we're actually servants of our senses and dictation of the senses. This is our position. So if we are ready to give to the dictations and demands and become masters of lust, why not Krishna? That's an option. That's an alternative. And Prabhupada in his Bhaktivinoda purports reveals, if you serve lust, this is the result. If you serve Krishna, this is the result. And we can practically experience that in our life. So the option of serving Krishna is far more enduring, eternal, blissful, relishable, adventurous, exciting. Therefore, we have to intelligently opt for service to Krishna. And we find in so many lectures, Prabhupada would end his lectures that if you surrender to Krishna, if you serve Krishna, if you bring Krishna in your life, you will be credited. You will be the one that will be benefited. You will never be a loser by taking this option. Whereas if you take the other option, you either have Krishna as your master or you have everything else that's not Krishna as your master. If you have Krishna as your master, you will always be successful. If you serve anyone else other than Krishna, you will always meet with failure, sooner or later. Somebody who's intelligent will choose the wise option. Arjuna is higher grade devotee than Yudhishthira Maharaj. Prabhupada said, Yudhishthira Maharaj should have thought like this, that yes, this body does not belong to me, but it belongs to Krishna. And Krishna desired that this body, they must be fighting for his satisfaction. So Arjuna thought like that. Arjuna thought like that. Therefore, Arjuna is higher grade devotee than Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj has got personal consideration. When Krishna advised him that you go to Dronacharya and speak the lie, that his son Ashwatthama is dead, otherwise he will not die, you go and speak. So he hesitated. He said, how is that? I never spoke a lie. How can I go and say him the lie? So this personal consideration is there. That if I speak lies, then I will be sinful and I'll be punished, and so on and on. But a devotee does not think like that. Maybe it is sinful, but it will satisfy Krishna. I must do it. This is devotee's decision. So Krishna's will, Krishna's desire is our command, is our desire. And sometimes people don't understand this. Oh, Krishna is telling Yudhishthira to lie. Krishna is the absolute truth. When the absolute truth tells you to do anything, it is truth. It is absolute truth. When you, who are relative, who are conditioned, who are illusioned, when you tell anyone to do anything, it is plagued by falsity. So therefore, we want to follow the instructions and desire of the Absolute and those who are perfectly aligned to the Absolute, whether it's good or bad relative to our conditioning. And Prabhupada is giving here the example of Yudhishthira Maharaj when he hesitated to follow Krishna's instructions. And he learned his lesson. It's ascribed, because Yudhishthira Maharaj never lied, his chariot never touched the ground. When he hesitated to follow Krishna's advice, instruction here, his chariot touched the ground. Not because he lied, because he spoke a lie, because he hesitated to follow the absolute truth. And that indirectly became a lie. Text 49. Balad Dvija Surin Mitra Pitra Brata Bratri Guru Druna Bruha Name Syanirayan Moksho Yapi Varsa Yuta Yute. I've killed many boys, brahmanas, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors, and brothers. I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all these sins, though I lived there for millions of years. So now he's revealing his conditioned nature or his conditioned state in terms of the suffering that is going to accrue, and he's thinking, I've killed so many varieties of well-wishers, family members, people, and no amount of atonement will redeem me or purify me. Prabhupada in the purport says, whenever there's a war, there's certainly a massacre of many innocent living beings, such as boys, brahmanas, women, whose killing is considered to be the greatest of sins. They are all innocent creatures, and in all circumstances, killing of them is forbidden in the scriptures. Maharaj Yudhishthira was aware of these mass killings. Similarly, there were friends, parents, and preceptors also on both sides, and all of them were killed. It was simply horrible for him to think of such killing, and therefore he was thinking of residing in hell for millions and billions of years. The Battle of Kurukshetra was fought on a battlefield where it was a distant away from the cities. So this is culture, even in warfare. Not like today's world where if there's a war, you go right into the city area and kill innocent people. This is selfishness. This is cowardice. Real warriorship means we go far away from where innocent children, women, brahmanas, cows will be impacted by the war. And we show our warriorship, we show our chivalry, we show our abilities one-on-one with the same weapons. If you have a sword, I can have a sword. Let's then fight. This was a real Kshatriya spirit. Kali Yuga, it's far, far from that. Prabhupada in the lecture says the real point he was missing, done under the instruction of Krishna. The real point he was missing, that whatever he has done, it has been done under the instruction of Krishna. Therefore, for ordinary men, this is a great sin. For sense gratification, if we kill so many persons, we are liable. But so far the Pandavas are concerned, they did not do it for the sense gratification. They did it for Krishna. Therefore, whatever they had done was right. That was right. Arjuna, as Prabhupada says, got this point. Yudhishthira didn't get the point, but we also know that Yudhishthira didn't get that point. Why? Because it was also Krishna's will. And he doesn't get that point. Even Arjuna could have come to Yudhishthira and says, brother, aren't you getting it? I mean, Krishna spoke for 45 minutes to me to reveal this principle to me. Didn't you get it? I mean, it's so straightforward. It's as clear as daylight. In daylight, can't you see? Can't you get it? Krishna is here. He's even telling you it was all okay because he desired it. And Yudhishthira does not get it. And he doesn't get it because Krishna does not want him to get it. Krishna as the super soul is putting that block so that Yudhishthira does not get it. So it's such a wonderful episode in the lives of the Pandavas, that here a pure devotee of the Lord is being influenced to not see the truth and act and behave in a way that is not befitting a devotee of the Lord. Similarly, we have to understand or appreciate the fact that in the episode of life, in relation to Krishna, in relation to spiritual life, in relation to the institution, in relation to Srila Prabhupada, in relation to so many episodes or areas, aspects, there may be incidents and situations that we see as unfortunate, as how can that be? And we have no clue whether that is Krishna's will. And why Krishna is doing that. And for what reason Krishna is doing that. Now, I'll give you an example. Sometimes devotees will come to me and say, what do you think about the book changes that is going on? Now, it's true. We know that we should not change Prabhupada's books against his will and his instructions. And my response will be, or generally would be to the devotee that ask, is, can you tell me firstly, what is Krishna's doing and intention in this episode? Because if you can tell me what Krishna's doing in this episode, then I can tell you whether it's wrong or right. So let's just break it up very simply. If Krishna's doing and Krishna's involved, Krishna's hand is involved in there, that he wants this to happen, and is choosing certain people for certain reason that we have no clue about. Just like at this point in this episode of Yudhishthira, we don't know. Why is Yudhishthira acting like this? Why is he lamenting like this? Why is he not seeing the truth? I mean, he knows the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. He's Dharmaraj. He passed so many of the questions given to him by Yamaraj himself. So how is he behaving like this, like an ignorant person? Does he need, few whacks to wake him up? Why is he acting like this? We don't know. We are being revealed. We are getting the truth revealed to us by the wisdom of the Bhagavatam, by the mercy of the Bhagavatam. And only later can we see why this happened, why this episode is happening, because Krishna wanted something else to happen. So similarly, if I don't know whether Krishna's hand is involved, I cannot comment. Yes, I wouldn't want to change Prabhupada's words, but it doesn't mean somebody else cannot if it's sanctioned by Krishna. Now, someone may say, oh, but how do you know if it's not sanctioned by Krishna? Well, I don't know, and therefore I cannot comment. I would not do it, but I cannot comment if others cannot, if that is Krishna's sanction, because then I'm going against Krishna's sanction. And therefore, what can I do? I can chant Hare Krishna, purify my life, and pray to Krishna, please reveal to me what is your plan. So that when you reveal to me what's my plan, then I can take a stance. And if Krishna reveals to me that this is not proper, then I can put my feet down and be bold to take a stance. Until then, I should chant Hare Krishna. Text 50. Naino Rajna Praja Bhartu Dharmayude Vado Dvisham Iti Mena tu Bodhaya Kalpate Shashanam Vacha. There is no sin for a king who kills all the right for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens, but this injunction is not applicable to me. So we are revealing Yudhishthira Maharaj his consciousness. If a king kills for the right cause, there is no sin. And yes, they killed for the right cause, so therefore there is no sin. And Yudhishthira Maharaj saying, no, that's not for me. See, he's not using scripture to justify his misactions, his wrong actions. He's actually saying, no, in scripture it is said that for a righteous cause, you don't get reaction. He's even excluding that for himself. So he's really seeing himself as unworthy, as really been responsible for this bad action. Krishna is really putting him in a situation to reveal that we should not misuse scripture to motivate our ill actions. Prabhupada says, Maharaj Yudhishthira thought that although he was not actually involved in the administration of the kingdom, which was being carried on well by Duryodhana, without harm to the citizens, he caused the killing of so many living beings only for his personal gain of the kingdom from the hands of Duryodhana. The killing was committed not in the cause of administration, but for the sake of self-aggrandizement. And as such, he thought himself responsible for all sins. And the lesson is, if you do anything for your self-aggrandizement, you will not be saved no matter what. But if you do everything for the pleasure of Krishna, sent, then Krishna takes responsibility. Prabhupada gives the example, just like you are a warrior and you fight on behalf of the government and you kill so many soldiers of the enemy. When you come home, you get a medal. Well done. Now you leave the army, you go to a city, somebody tells you something and you just kill them, you put in jail. Now you can say, but gee, I killed so many people on the battlefield and I get a medal, and now I kill one character and you put me in jail. It's unfair. No, when you are killing on behalf of the government, they take the responsibility, not you. And when you leave the government and now go and kill on your own, you take that responsibility. So like this, when we do anything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, they take the consequence and they also take the credit. But they're happy to also give you the credits, to give you the glory. Prabhupada says in a lecture, what is religious fight? What is religious fight? Religious fight means you have got the right to kill your aggressor. If somebody takes your property, if somebody sets fire in your house, if somebody kidnaps your wife, or somebody is trying to kill you, they are called aggressor. So aggressor should be killed immediately. It is not that somebody has become aggressor, and if I say, now I have become a Vaishnava, I will not be violent. I shall tolerate. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us to be tolerant like a tree or grass. So I shall become tolerant. Let him do. Just like Gandhi used to say. Somebody questioned him that if somebody comes and violates the chastity of your daughter in your presence, what will you do? And he said, I'll remain non-violent. But this is not Shastric injunction. This is foolishness. And this is why Prabhupada did not appreciate Gandhi's, or rather, when people say Mahatma Gandhi, Prabhupada did not appreciate that because he's not a Mahatma. A Mahatma would never deviate from scripture. A Mahatma, his whole life is surrendered to the divine energy. A Mahatma is dedicated and surrendered to the will of Krishna. Gandhi was not. Gandhi was politically inclined. Yes, he sacrificed in many ways, but it was on the material platform. And in some cases, he even used spirituality or religious in different ways. And yes, we're not saying that he was not spiritually inclined, but he definitely was not on the level of a Mahatma. And here's one example why. Because a Mahatma would fight. Oh, you're an aggressor, you're coming to destroy the chastity of my daughter, you come. Just like during Juhu, the battle, Prabhupada was fighting. When Mr. Sethi said, oh, you're going to come and destroy, you're going to come with your rifles? Come. Let's see. I will also come with my rifles. How many people are you coming with? Oh, 100? Bring 100. I will bring 100 bullets. I'll bring 250 bullets, more bullets. Let's see, you come. He was a warrior for Krishna. Prabhupada appreciated this. So, a Kshatriya, under the direction of the Brahmanas, will always protect. And this idea of non-violence is not proper. Yes, we don't commit violence unnecessarily, even to an end. But for the right cause, violence is important. Prabhupada would debate with many people. They would come and say, oh, Swamiji is so nice. If Krishna can't spread, people become non-violent. Prabhupada says, who said non-violence is bad? Or violence is, who said non-violence is good? Violence is required. Krishna incited Arjuna to fight. Violence is required for the right cause. Otherwise, there will be chaos. There will be total chaos. So violence need to be administered under the right consciousness for the right cause. If somebody is an aggressor, he must be killed immediately. Dharma Yuddha. Yudhishthira Maharaj is thinking that although there was fight, the fight was between our own men, my brothers, my nephews, my grandfather. So they are family members. I have killed them for my kingdom. He is thinking in that way. He is a pious man. Violence is required. They must be killed. Similarly, non-violence does not mean that in right causes, you will remain non-violent. No, you do not attack anybody unnecessarily. You do not kill unnecessarily animals, not even an ant. You should be non-violent by your nature. But when there is aggression, their enemies, the Shastra says Dharma Yuddha. That is Dharma Yuddha. So, Praja Bhartu Dharma Yuddha Vadu Visham. Visham means envious. So they must be killed. Only those who are transcendental can perceive good and bad, or distinguish between good and bad. Others who are conditioned cannot distinguish between dharma and adharma. And that is why a pure devotee as a ruler is the most ideal. Why? Because he is transcendental to conditioning. And therefore, he can clearly distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. In the conditioned stage, we are influenced by the good and bad of this world. And therefore, in this material world, even those who are on the path can be influenced by bad to think it's good, and influenced by good thinking it's bad. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that those who are influenced in Kali Yuga or in mode of ignorance, right becomes wrong and wrong becomes right. Religion becomes irreligion, irreligion becomes a religion. Because we are conditioned by the lower modes. But those who are transcendental, they have proper vision to understand that, hold on, this is the effect of Kali Yuga. That is why, under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada, he could guide his followers to understand exactly what is right, what is wrong. He could see through the facade, the illusion, the ignorance. You could say the brainwashing, the mundane education. For example, Srila Prabhupada was in the presence and at the time when the whole world was convinced that they were landing on the moon. And here is one man who is sitting in front of his disciples who are also seeing the moon landing. And he's saying, they have not landed on the moon. And the disciples are shocked. I mean, we see it. What they are seeing was not the truth. They were presented with a perception of truth, but they could not distinguish the truth. Srila Prabhupada, who was transcendental to the modes of material nature, a pure devotee of the Lord, was able to distinguish the truth. And at that point, we cannot really understand Prabhupada's reaction. Years later, we can appreciate. Now there's so much evidence that is there that the whole moon landing was a hoax. And now you look back and think, wow, Srila Prabhupada was right. No doubt he was right because he was transcendental. And just as he's right in that situation, Prabhupada is right in every situation as the pure devotee of the Lord, as the ambassador of the Lord. And therefore, those who follow Srila Prabhupada will always be on the righteous path. 51. Strinam maddata danunam drohoyo sav ihoti tita karmabir griha me diyer naham kalpovya pohitam tum. I have killed many friends of women and have thus caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work. Purport. The Griya Medis are those whose only business is to perform welfare work for the sake of material prosperity. Such material prosperity is sometimes hampered by sinful activities. For the materialist is sure to commit sins, even unintentionally, in the course of discharge of material duties. To get relief from such sinful reactions, the Vedas prescribe several kinds of sacrifices. It is said in the Vedas that by performing the Ashwamedha Yagya or sacrifice, one can get relief from even Brahma Hatya, killing of a Brahmana. Yudhishthira might perform this Ashwamedha Yagya, but he thinks that even by performing such yagyas, it is not possible to get relief from the great sins committed. In war, either the husband or the brother or even the father or son go to fight, and When they are killed, a fresh enmity is created, and thus a chain of actions and reactions increases, which is not possible to be counteracted even by thousands of Ashwamedha yajnas. The way of work, karma, is like that. It creates one action and another reaction simultaneously, and thus increases the chain of material activities, binding the performer in material bondage. In Bhagavad Gita 9:27-28, the remedy is suggested that by such actions and reactions of the path of work can be checked only when work is done on behalf of the Supreme Lord. The battle of Kurukshetra was actually fought by the will of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, as it is evident from his version. And only by his will was Yudhishthira placed on the throne of Hastinapur. Therefore, factually, no sin whatsoever touched the Pandavas, who were only the order carriers of the Lord. For others who declare war out of personal interest, the whole responsibility lies on them. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is thinking that Krishna instructed me to, I was instructed to do Ashwamedha Yajna so that I can purify myself and be enthroned as a righteous king. But even if I do thousands of Ashwamedha sacrifices now, I will not be able to be redeemed because of the karmic cycle or chain of reactions. There were many enemies that I've killed, but actually now, by killing those enemies, really what has happened is more enemies are born, because all the family members of the enemy of soldiers that have been killed are actually cursing me and are seeing me as an enemy. So this is the implication and the reaction of what goes on in the material world. And that is why we should be very careful to counteract. Oh, you did this to me, I'm going to do this to you. We're going to learn this lesson also in the different episodes that are going to come in the Bhagavatam. Because the cycle of action and reaction is vicious. Oh, I was exploited, therefore I'm also going to do this. Oh, I was dealt in this way, therefore I'm going to also do this. No, we should be very careful. We should learn to put a pause button on karmic reactions and understand that everything that I'm getting is a consequence of my actions. Therefore, let me stop performing actions for my sense gratification and let me learn the art of performing actions for the pleasure of Krishna. In that way, I become free from the cycle of karmic reactions. Prabhupada in his lecture says, the king is thinking of women so seriously. So Maharaj Yudhishthira is very much repentant. I've killed so many men, and some of them are fathers, some of them are brothers, some of them are sons, some of them are husbands of women. And because I've killed them, now this woman class, they have become friendless. So he is, just see how much he's aggrieved, thinking of the condition of women. And people accuse that India, women are considered just like slaves. Just see, the king is thinking of women so seriously. And it is a fact that in India, woman is taken as, and is it a fact that in India, woman is taken as slaves? Who cares for slaves? So much anxiety, that is the king. Yes, a king shall give protection to everyone, especially those who are helpless. So the point is that Yudhishthira Maharaj, how much responsible king he was, that for ordinary women, the soldiers or the officers, the commanding chief, they all died. Now he's thinking of their welfare activities, how to give protection to these women. Just imagine how much responsible king. And he's thinking in this way, that the sinful activities which I have done in this connection by killing their husbands and sons and fathers, even if I give some donation as welfare, just like in your country, there is welfare department, all these helpless girls are given some donation. He says that is not sufficient. That, by the way, I cannot compensate what harm I have done for them. That is his son. Even if I give some money, donation, he'll not be happy because they have lost their protection. This is called responsible king. Especially Brahmanas, children, women, duty of the king. So without king, not like the present government officers, all rogues, simply take taxes and let the citizens go to hell. There is no protection for anyone. Either for the children, either for the Brahmanas or for women, no protection. You go to hell. If you like, we can give you some contribution, that's all. No, the king must be so responsible that he should see to the comfort of the citizens, especially the brahmanas, the children, the women. That was the duty of the king. And this is the Varnashya system that has to be established. This is the responsibility of the Hare Krishna movement. A huge responsibility. Prabhupada said, 50% of my work is undone. This is what Prabhupada wanted to establish. The ideal leaders, rulers, the ideal brahmanas, the ideal warriors, the ideal grihastas, the ideal brahmacharis, the ideal mercantile class, the perfect race or culture. 52. Yata pankena pankamba surayava surakritam bhutahatyam tataivakyam na yagner marstum arhati. As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. A beautiful analogy Yudhishthira Maharaj is giving. Prabhupada in the purport says, the Ashwamedha Yagyas or Gomedha Yagyas, sacrifices in which a horse or a bull is sacrificed, were not of course for the purpose of killing the animals. Lord Chaitanya said that such animal sacrifice on the altar of Yajna were rejuvenated and a new life was given to them. It was just to prove the efficacy of the hymns of the Vedas. By reciting the hymns of the Vedas in the proper way. Certainly, the performer gets relieved from the reactions of sins, but in the case of such sacrifices improperly done under inexpert management, surely one is to become responsible for the animal sacrifice. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there is no possibility of performing yajnas perfectly for the want of expert brahmanas who are able to conduct such yajnas. Yudhishthira therefore gives a hint to the performing sacrifices in the age of Kali. In the age of Kali, the only sacrifice recommended is the performance of Harinam Yajna inaugurated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one should not indulge in animal killing and counteract it by performing Harinam Yajna. Those who are devotees of the Lord never kill an animal for self-interest, as the Lord ordered Arjuna, they did not refrain from performing the duty of a Kshatriya. The whole purpose, therefore, is served when everything is done for the will of the Lord. That is possible only for the devotees. Thus ends the Bhakti and the purpose of the first canto, 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prayers of Queen Kunti and Parikshit say. So beautiful example, you cannot clean a wine pot with wine. The wine pot is impure due to the wine that's still there. Now, if I take wine, I can't wash out that wine. Just doesn't work, doesn't make sense. Or if I have muddy cloth, I can take mud and wash off that mud. So I cannot take impurity to purify impurity. Now someone might say, but that's common sense. But common sense may not be common. And therefore, we need guidance from those who are self-realized to reveal this to us. Like sometimes people will justify, right, a wrong action. They'll do something that's because there's an unjust situation. They will now want to justify that by performing another unjust action. Right? So two wrongs does not make a right. It's interesting also from a Krishna conscious perspective that the impurities lie inside us. Therefore, no amount of impure actions will really purify that which is inside. Even if I perform the Ashwamedha sacrifice in this age, I will not be able to become purified. Why? Because it is not sanctioned in this age. It may be a glorious yajna, but because it is not sanctioned in this age, it does not purify the impurities. The yajna that's prescribed for this age is chanting of the holy names of Krishna. And that is why we need to abide, we need to be respectful, we need to be loyal to that process and not what I want, what I think, or according to my understanding. That is why Srila Bhakti Maharaj said, when anybody says, I think, you tell him, stop, don't complete a sentence, go in the closet, close the closet, complete a sentence, come out. Because we're not interested in what you think. In relation to the yajna, it is also interesting that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Yuga avatar. He has come at the beginning of this age to present the process of purification, the process of perfection, the process of achieving the perfection of human form of life. And if anyone, even though they may be spiritualists, they may be religionists, they may be pious, they may be learned in scripture, they may be following any other tradition, spiritual tradition, religious tradition, if they do not honor the Yuga avatar and respect the fact that the Lord has come and given this process, then they are disrespecting the Supreme Lord and are deviating from the path of true spirituality. And if someone understands their position, that my position is to simply follow the Lord. So if my position is simply to follow the Lord, and the Lord came and gave the process, then my position is simply to follow that and not introduce anything outside or add or subtract to what he has given. And therefore we see Srila Prabhupada did not add, did not subtract to the process of chanting Hare Krishna mantra. Even when his disciples wanted to add or they wanted to deviate from it, Prabhupada rectified that situation and said, do not add, do not subtract to what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given. This is called loyalty. And if one is loyal to this, then there can be results. If you decide otherwise due to your so-called intelligence, to add, to subtract, to twist, to introduce anything else, Prabhupada says it will simply create havoc or incompleteness. It'll create undue anxiety or disturbance. Ultimately, you will not get the desired result. And that is why Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is very simple for the simple-minded. This is the yajna, this is the process, this is the mantra. Let me accept it and perfect my life. And those who are complicated, well, they will complicate the karma and stay in this world for eternity if they chose. So in these verses, Yudhishthira Maharaj is revealing his conditioned nature by Krishna's arrangement. He's revealing that he will not be able to be purified no matter what. And he's taking full accountability and responsibility. We're going to hear in the future episode how chapter 9, how Bhishma Dev is going to reveal the principles of Dharma to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Thus ends this session of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai. If there's any questions or comments, please share. We got about 10 minutes before ESCOM showers their darkness upon us. Right, I'm going to read Bafana Prabhu's feedback as well. He says he learned about knot of attachment due to affection to family and cutting off the knot of affection for family to do away with further bondage to the cycle of birth and death. Desire, yes, and that means any material affection, don't want. Spiritual affection, amplify. Desire to serve the Lord with undivided attention, similar to as the Ganga forever flows to the sea without hindrance. Let my attention be drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Yes. Queen Kunti's choice of words is glorified and evoked a smile from the Lord. Yet, most fascinating is in the choice of words used by Srila Prabhupada, for instance, like the statement, cows, brahmanas, and the devotees of the Lord, all object of his special attention. His important factor. Beautiful choice of words, yes. And we know that Prabhupada's choice of words were not just haphazard, whimsical. They were very intentional, very meditative. And I give this example. Consider a writer. If you are a writer, you write for a specific generation, for a specific time, on a specific topic. You cannot write, no writer can write for 10,000 years of generation, of mindset change, of people that we don't even know what type of people are coming. Yet Prabhupada was able to write his Bhaktivedanta purpose for the next 10,000 years. Understand the dynamics of the generation that's going to come. Every 10 years is a new generation, a new mindset of people. For the next 10,000 years, there's going to be thousands and thousands of generations. And these books are going to touch every single one of them that come in contact with them. That's the power of these books. That's the power of what Srila Prabhupada has given. It's inconceivable. No scholar, no author has ever done that in the history of humanity. Prabhupada was that person chosen to serve Lord Chaitanya in that capacity. It's glorious. Prabhupada, however, uses the words Uttama Sloka. No amount of choice words is sufficient to enumerate the Lord's glory. Yet, he is satisfied with such prayer. Yes, even the Lord is satisfied if a child who doesn't know how to speak, doesn't know how to pray. Prabhupada gave examples, just like in other cultures, they may not be able to pronounce a mantra properly. But if they have the sincerity of heart, Krishna accepts. Thank you, Bafana, for your feedback. Pastor Stalis Hare Krishna, thank you for lovely class. Srila Prabhupada is always amazing. So much to learn from him with how he deals with devotees to inspire all on the path of bhakti. Yes. And we have a wonderful role model as Srila Prabhupada. We have to really pray to imbibe and become exemplary to please him. Madhacharya Siddhis Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhu, for recharging our batteries every week. It is my pleasure to be of some service. I am recharging my own batteries because I need recharging. It's like my cell phone dies every time and I need to recharge. I need to also recharge. And the energy, the powerhouse is Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purpose, Prabhupada's association. Amavati Radhika says, an absolutely exciting class, really inspiring us on our spiritual journey. Thank you very much for explaining so expertly. We are so grateful. Thank you. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Shamananda Prabhu says, many important points discussed. Srila Prabhupada has shown us what is right, what is wrong connection with Krishna, and opened our eyes in so many ways, especially in regards to so-called moral social norms, so that we can understand better in relation to Krishna and the absolute platform. And as you say, that these purports are all for all time, all audience, all places. Yes. Emma Kishori Devidas says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, my humble obeisance, thank you for such nectarian class. Very grateful. I have always wondered why there's so much violence in our scripture. Can you elaborate? Yes, the violence is there because it relates to the material world. There's so much violence in the material world. So people can relate to the violence, but the violence in the Vedas are for the right cause. The violence in the Vedas are for dharma to excel adharma, for right to excel wrong. Righteousness, truth always prevail. So we must understand we are in a battlefield. Our life is a battle. We are battling with our desires. Serve Krishna, don't serve Krishna. Right, wrong. For me, not for me. We are in a battle. We're battling with people's desires. We're battling with exploitation. This material world is basically a battle between right and wrong. So the Vedas also are presented with that battle. And the Vedas are revealing the right battle. So therefore, there's so much violence in the right way, in the right perspective. Rasaraj Babu says, in terms of Shastra, we should not be attached to our property and family. So how we reconcile killing aggressors? However, we do not have the power to deal with those hijackers or robbers in Kali Yuga. Yes, so we need to become expert at dealing with them and then do the rightful. The property don't belong to us, neither does it belong to them. It belongs to Krishna. And you are given the property as a caretaker, as a steward to protect the property. So as a landlord, you're meant to protect the property of Krishna, and anyone that comes to steal the property, you're meant to protect. Yes, you may not be a Kshatriya, therefore we need to train the Kshatriyas to then serve the Brahmanas to protect the property. I'm making very brief because we got 5 minutes before lights go out. Nonetheless, thank you for the glorious Krishna Katha. Yudhishthira been covered by Krishna's will, put him in situation that we are currently in, also preparing us to hear Bhishma Dev's message. Thank you. Yes, just see how wonderful Krishna could have said, okay, end of the story, let's go. No, Krishna wants to bring the glories of Bhishma Dev, the truth from Bhishma Dev. Just see how Krishna is so merciful to us in sharing the glories of his devotees and the wisdom of his devotees. Rasaralpa, thank you for explaining the concept, our desires standing in the queue. Giridhar Prabhu says, thank you for the continuous sessions. They keep us aligned in spiritual path. Yes, thank you very much for everyone's association, feedback, and questions. Really appreciate that. We will continue next week with a new chapter, and let's continue our association with Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, we will be eternally blessed. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Go Pramanande, Hari Hari Bo.